How about now? Can you hear us now? Hear us now.
Have you got an echo?
Yeah, cool.
Have you got an echo?
Yeah, you're going to have an echo through the headphones. You can take the headphones off. Actually,
Oh, okay.
it might be better. Do we need the headphones? You can still hear us, right?
Okay.
So the headphones just look cool, don't
Yeah.
they?
We don't need them. That's fine.
Yeah, we've basically set up a second mic. Just completely with Google. And so then obviously when you record on a mic, you usually have to select one mic.
Yeah.
So selecting
now we
two
can...
mics, like required a piece of
Oh,
software.
right,
You
of
have to install
course.
the software. And did, but you have to play that software in the background, apparently. That's what I was doing wrong there. So thank you for that, Harry. You've saved us there. Okay. And we will hit record on the Audacity, and I think we'll just jump in.
Cool.
To go. That's all the right settings, I believe. So if you talk.
Hello.
That looks good.
Yep, we're good to go.
Okay.
Well,
we're off. All right. So welcome to this episode of Empower Talks. And we're doing this differently today. I'm joined by Tosin Falope, who is our newest joiner in Empower Development. And when I say joined, I mean we're literally in the same room, which we've never done for a podcast.
This is true.
Very exciting. And we're also, just because doing one thing new, just didn't feel like enough, we're also doing this live at YouTube at the same time. So not only is this the first time we've done it in person, but this is also going to be completely live and no edits. I mean, we might edit.
Yeah.
That's how we got to podcast.
We'll see at the end.
If you want to see the version without any edits or trims, then it will be on the YouTube as well. So welcome.
Thank
Tosin.
you. Hello, everyone. Lovely to be here.
Tosin's been with us since November.
November, yes.
So at the time of recording, that's like 3 months.
Yeah. What a 3 months it's been. Yeah, it's been amazing.
It's a good time of year to join.
It's a brilliant time of year to join. Lots of Christmas festivities to see me in. So that was great.
No, I was about to say that, and then I was like, actually, but they all kind of came in January, didn't they, because of the train strikes?
Yeah.
We did miss out on our December Christmas lunch, but there was like enough events going across the market,
to get me out there and meet a lot of great people. So that was amazing.
Yeah, certainly met a lot of people already.
Yeah.
I think even day one was
women in insurance. That was an excellent first day at a job, but I got to meet so many incredible women in insurance from the get-go, and it was really exciting. So that was brilliant. It was kind of a taste of what was to come.
That's a big conference as well, that one was.
Yeah.
It was a nice event. So we're gonna go through and start in the sort of normal setup of the podcast, which is to find out a little bit about you, and starting off with your career journey. So do you want to tell us where essentially you've started out and how you've ended up here?
Yeah, it's a bit of a, I suppose, unusual or unconventional story, but I think they're always the best ones when I think about people's careers. So I actually started off my career in fashion. So straight out of uni, didn't really know what I wanted to do at uni. So I studied business, which is just like, the generic degree for someone who doesn't know what they want to do. Really loved it. But decided I want to go into sort of the business of fashion. That was kind of the thing I was most interested in at that time. And I did that for a few years, and it was some great experience. But then I came to realize that the culture just wasn't for me. It just wasn't where I saw myself long term, and I'd experienced a lot of burnout and a lot of just sort of disillusionment, not really knowing, what it was I wanted from life, and I found that really difficult. So I kind of moved out from fashion, but kind of stayed broadly in retail and moved into consulting, which was kind of the second career, I guess, I kind of moved into. And then through consulting, I really discovered my love of kind of education and training. So I had a portfolio of clients that I was working with at a data science agency, and I did a lot of technical skills training with them and sort of data literacy. And I just really learned to love it. I loved connecting with people and teaching them new skills and helping them be better at their jobs. So when I had the opportunity to move fully into an education role within that business, I jumped at it, and I haven't looked back. And I realized that it took me a little while, but I definitely found my career passion, and I realized just how passionate I was about L&D, about training, about helping people develop themselves. So I was doing that and kind of wanted to move more broadly into soft skills training, because I again, something I've always enjoyed, and I love developing myself, and I enjoy that process of being able to build the skills that will help you flourish in a career, regardless of what field you're in. So yeah, when I came across the ad for the job at Empower Development, I just jumped at it. I just loved that there was a real focus on those skills, and it was something so integral to what I've experienced being a real learning culture within insurance. So yeah, and then I reached out to Sam, and I haven't looked back since.
Yeah, I think it's like when you're at school, you're very aware of the job of teachers, and I think a lot of
Yes.
people want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
But as you grow up, you kind of look at the job of a teacher and think, there's some downsides. Like, I don't want to do that, and then you rule that out.
Yeah.
And then almost into your career, you realise there's almost a job for teaching, but for teaching adults, for teaching in corporates,
Yeah.
for teaching with a kind of business feel rather than that kind of educational feel.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
But you don't necessarily discover that like until further into your career.
Yeah, and I was completely oblivious to it. And I think it was a nice reminder to know that you never stop learning, and it's never too late to kind of reroute yourself, try something new. And that was definitely my experience, and what brought me to kind of training and education. So
if we go back, because I just had a flashback as you were talking about that, when you said like the culture, and you were very careful with your words about what you didn't like about the culture.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you an experience I had, so you can still be allowed to be careful with your words and how you reply. But I can remember after I did my placement year, I was applying for jobs, and I went for one interview on Bond Street. My placement was actually on Bond Street.
Okay.
So that is nothing to do with them. They were a bank. And they were lovely. I loved working there. But on Bond Street, there was this very, very well-known, very glamorous fashion brand who had a HR job. So I went for an interview there, and I went into what is one of the most glamorous brands in the world through this back door to this office that had probably not been wallpapered or painted for 20 years. Like, it just looked so run down. The people looked so run down. And when I was in this interview, there was just this vibe of like, well, we're the best. So you should really, really, really want to work for us.
Yeah.
And like this really intense, like, we're honouring you to even allow you in for this interview.
Yeah.
And I remember actually, and people that know me will be very surprised by this, because this like never happens. I walked out and I cried. Like I actually cried after an interview.
Yeah.
And I got feedback that the interview went really well. And I was like, I didn't make it for the interview.
Yeah, didn't enjoy that process.
Why?
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just like because they're so used to like having a queue of people who just so desperately want to work there.
Yeah.
But they can treat people like that. But I was so like I'd only had that experience in a really nice private bank, like lovely working hours. The whole culture was about looking after everyone, kind of treating it like a family business, to this environment where honestly I was in there 45 minutes and just was like looking for a fire exit.
Just to escape. Yeah, no, that was definitely my experience. I think that's really common. Well, I can only speak from sort of the fashion retail experience that I've had, but there is definitely this sentiment that there are 1,000 other girls, let's say, who want your job. So you have to be grateful to be there. And I think I definitely took on that mentality, and it was, I suppose I didn't have the confidence to ask for more or think I deserve more. And I think you can really get ground down in that mentality. So you'll put up with things that you shouldn't. You will handle the microaggressions that are thrown at you daily. You will deal with very difficult people who will give you no kind of latitude for making mistakes or for learning and for growth. And I think I got to a point in my career in fashion where I met some incredible people, had some great experiences. There's so much creativity, but I just knew I was never going to thrive in that environment. And I just was not set up for success. And I think I kind of started on the journey of finding where I kind of fit in life, really, because that's all I'd ever known. I think when you get into a career that is a passion, let's say, it's hard to separate you as an individual and your identity from the job. So I definitely had a bit of a crisis when I came out of that, because that's all I'd known. That's all I'd ever thought I would be. I was the fashion girl.
Yeah.
And then to kind of step away from that was really disorientating. But
And I suppose you must get really conflicting sort of messages socially. So you tell your friends where you work.
yeah,
And they're like, oh my God, you're
it's
so
such
lucky.
a status
I'd love
thing.
to work there. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I am lucky. And then you're going into your job like, oh, I really don't enjoy this, but I am lucky.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to kind of come to that conclusion in your mind.
Exactly, because it's sexy. It's kind of like, yeah, I work here, and it's like, you know, everyone's kind of googly-eyed about it, but I kind of knew.
It's like the opposite of
truth.
insurance outside.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's
literally the opposite, because I think insurance has this rep of not being sexy, but you know, my experience so far is just a really interesting, diverse kind of culture of learning and challenges, and just things that are so real world and so like complex and just fascinating. So yeah, it is definitely the opposite. I think insurance just needs better PR, and I guess that's why you're here.
Yeah, we're getting there.
We are getting there.
TikTok is definitely helping.
Yeah.
That's nice. Okay. Well, how about outside of work? So
Yes.
for people that haven't met you yet, tell us a little bit about you outside of things.
Yeah, so outside of work, oh God, I hate these sort of questions. So I live in Southeast London. I've recently moved into my own place, which is very exciting. I have a dog called Wilson, who's a little cockapoo. So I'm definitely adulting from that side of things. I suppose outside of work, I just, you know, I love to be, you know, connected with my friends and family. I'm lucky enough to have a lot of family around me and a lot of friends around me, which is great. Interests. I'm really into psychology. I think I've mentioned that a couple of times, but it's just something I've always been really curious about, you know, what makes us tick and who we are. And I've just finished a counselling skills course, which has been really illuminating. And I think it's really helped me in how I can show up better for those around me, just by having those skills that help you connect with people better and know how you can kind of support people better. So yeah, mental health and psychology is something I'm really, really passionate about. I'm also really interested in just the whole DE&I conversation. So both inside of work and outside of work. It's just something that really fires me up, just seeing how much the world is changing at the moment and how we're kind of hopefully moving in a direction of sort of greater sort of social consciousness from, you know, a racial perspective, from a gender perspective. And that's the kind of stuff I could talk about that all day long. It's just so interesting to me. So yeah, definitely outside of work, that's something that definitely fires me up for sure.
Cool. And you did the first aider, didn't you? The mental health first aider.
Yes.
Was that before or after that? The counselling course?
So I did that first, actually. Yeah, I'd wanted to become a mental health first aider for a little while. I just thought it was a great thing to learn, and it's something that I want to keep up with. But it was a great program. I was lucky enough to get some sort of free sponsorship to do it, and yeah, just, you know, for myself, understanding how your mental health can be it can be fragile sometimes, and in today's world there's a lot of things that can impact that. And I think kind of going through like my career journey, as I mentioned, I really understood the power of counseling, of therapy, of talking, and being able to, you know, get that qualification meant a lot to me, that, you know, I hopefully could help someone else who's in a similar situation to me one day, just being able to have the toolkit to do that.
Do you know, I was listening to Steve Peters on the Diary CEO yesterday. I haven't got through the whole episode yet, but I will. I'm obsessed with that podcast. But so he wrote the Chimp Paradox, and we talk about a lot about Chimp Paradox in our courses. Yeah, and he said something on it which completely made sense, but I kind of hadn't linked to the chimp before, which is when we talk. So when we say something out loud, so if we've got like a sort of topic going on that's stressing us out. As you say it out loud, you are almost allowing your chimp to get it out and your human to like start digesting it.
Right.
So even the process of saying it out loud allows you to start handling it. So it's not always, you know, sharing it. We always say that kind of, you know, problem shared is problem halved. And we kind of know that from a relationship perspective, but the brain psychology also supports that as you say it out loud,
it helps kind of process it.
Oh,
yeah. that does make a lot of sense. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of power in talking and sharing stories, and for connection, and just not feeling like, you're alone. So
Yeah.
and that's
no,
a really great insight.
I will carry on listening to that one.
Yeah, no, I need to listen to that. I love The Chimp Paradox. It's a really, really great book. So recommend
and the
that.
second book up there, actually,
Ooh.
if you're on our YouTube live, you will see that we have a color coordinated bookshelf that we will do a list of
beautiful.
And we've now got an awards shelf. People keep saying to me, "Where are you putting them all?" It's like, it's always like a joke. People
We're gonna need a bigger shelf.
Like, where to put them? So I thought we'll put them in somewhere together. I think we can still fit a couple more in there. That'll hopefully get us through 2023. So yeah, that second book there, The Path of the Jungle, Path Through the Jungle, sorry, is essentially on from Chimp Paradox. So if you have not read Chimp Paradox before and you're listening and wondering sort of why I've mentioned it so many times, it is one of the most popular books that people read after our courses because it is something that just is so relatable for people in terms of that voice in your head that's making you feel anxious or stopping you talking up in meetings that you have all the time, and people kind of wonder where it's come from or think it's just them. And actually, once you get that kind of theory, it makes everything feel more normal, but also like you have some more influence and control over this voice than you thought. So the Chimp Paradox book is all about what's going on in your head. Path Through the Jungle is a lot more practical. It's almost like if Steve Peters can't coach you, counsel you one-on-one, he's made this book so that he can share all of his knowledge and exercises with you so you can do it for yourself. And so I really want to do that. In fact, I've got plans. Oh gosh. This is why we edit the podcast. I don't want to say these plans out loud. There's nothing on the list. I might go through it myself and like make TikToks out of it, like as I do it on myself. That'd be really nice.
That'd be great. Yeah.
So that's on the list. Okay, so this is your first role in insurance. So you've worked a lot with data. That's one of the things we were quite excited about as we were going through that recruitment process. Because data is just a hot topic in insurance, of course. There's millions of bits of data that help people come out with identifying their risks and pricing them and so on. But equally, historically, that's not the way we've done things. So there's a lot of kind of training needs around data and getting people more comfortable with it and understanding big data and how it can be used. So that's quite sort of exciting for us to look into our catalogue of what we offer. But in terms of insurance itself, you are now in it for the first time. You're still quite new in it. So you're not kind of you're able to kind of have your own judgments on it rather than sort of start feeling like you've got those biases because you're in it, you love it.
Yeah, that's true.
So what are your first impressions? What would you tell us?
First impressions. I suppose first impressions is that I feel like there's a space for everyone in insurance, which has been really interesting. I've been lucky enough to, work with people who are kind of the start of their careers, fresh in from school or university leavers, or have been in insurance in a number of roles in different ways for a long time. And I think it's just really refreshing that there feels like there's room for everyone to succeed in insurance. And I don't know if that's me sounding, really kind of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, because I'm brand new, but that's definitely been my first impression, that there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of really, really interesting work that has, real world consequence. We're not just talking about numbers on a page here. There's, things that shape the world that we're living, and insurance is really at the heart of that. So that's been really fascinating to start learning a little bit about that. And I think I've met a real diverse mix of people, which is always cool because it means you're hearing lots of different perspectives, new ideas being brought to the table, and that's really exciting. Because often coming from a data science firm, there was a lot of how can I put it, a lot of the same, I suppose, and I haven't gotten that impression with insurance. But I guess every company is different. It's a huge generalization at this point, but that's definitely been my first impression.
No, I'd say like one of the things I can remember quite sort of clearly, like it was spoken about in terms of underwriting teams, they would deliberately want to recruit like for diversity of thought. And it completely makes sense why you would. So if you have an underwriting team, let's say you're doing property insurance, it makes complete sense to have somebody who's got like an economics background on the team, and geography, and maybe history or business, or like just a whole mixture of different perceptions, because you're trying to work out what might happen based on what's happened before.
Yeah.
You're also trying to work out what might happen that you would never think of happening. Like
Right.
you're trying to predict the black swans, right?
Yeah.
That you just don't know exist. So if you're all looking at it the same way, you're all going to come to the same
You're gonna
conclusions.
miss
But the more
something.
variety
Yeah.
you've got, the more forward thinking you can be on it, and actually make a service the clients, but also like look after your portfolio because of that.
Yeah.
So I think you see that, like certainly as companies get bigger, I think the smaller the company, I do think like it's always often a trend of small businesses that when they're very small, people have kind of got a lot more in common, and over time that kind of diversity comes in. I think you see that just because of like the passions of the business or the vision of the business is so focused on the sort of senior management, it gets diluted over time. But yeah, the variety I think absolutely comes through. Whereas if you're looking at data science, you would really probably need someone who's done a degree in something to do with data. Like, so you would end up having a lot more of like a set type.
Exactly. And I think that's it. There's no such, I guess from what I've seen, there's no such thing as like an insurance person from the get-go. And I've met people with degrees in a complete, just an array of different subjects, which I think is again really cool, because it just means, you know, people think differently, and they approach things from a different perspective, different worldview. Another thing I've loved actually, it's just there's so many networks and so many different groups in insurance. So I feel like, you know, if you want to find, I guess, your people in insurance, it's there. And I love that. I think that's really interesting. From, you know, my first day, you know, I learned all about ICANN, LTL, you know, all these really great groups are bringing together like-minded people and, you know, helping them thrive in insurance. And I just, I think that's brilliant.
And if it's not there, you just make it, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's that energy to do it. And I think that is really cool. Again, something I wish I'd kind of had at the start of my career.
Yeah, like Tenny's, I think my perfect example of
Tenny,
how you do that. Yeah, so you listen back on the podcast if you haven't sort of heard of Tenny or checked it out. But essentially, she was going to networking events and just kind of thought like, I want to go into a room and feel like I know these people, like I'm connected to straight away. But she wants to go to other networking groups as well. So she set up Ladies Lunch. Initially, it was for Black women in insurance. Now it's for underrepresented women in insurance. So there's kind of a space to go and talk about things where people understand. And have those conversations. And she literally just thought, oh, we should have that. I'm going to do it. But there was no like, I need to ask permission from the insurance gods. Like, like, I think people wait to kind of get this approval from, but there is no person to approve this. There's no one person that represents the industry. If you want to do it, you just go and do it. And I think like that's so empowering to think like, you know, she's got hundreds of members. You know, she's won rightly won some really well recognized awards for it. She's done such a good job. And I think there's definitely more room for that.
And I love that. And I think with insurance being an industry as old as it is, there's always going to be you know, let's say older mindsets that will exist in any industry, I guess, that's been around as long as this. But it's so nice to know that there are, you know, there are change makers, there's people who are willing to not just stick with the status quo and make room for everyone to succeed. And I think that's great.
Yeah, get part of the change.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how about us? I can remember when we interviewed you, one of the things that I loved, which if you're listening to this as a job seeker from TikTok, I highly recommend as a tip. So like just go on company social medias. They do put effort and they think about what they're putting out on there. And if somebody reads it, it's like, it's almost flattering. It's like, oh, you read the blog, you watched the video, or so on. And you'd kind of like, you had completely vetted us before you came in for that interview. So what would be your kind of impression of us? And then how have we kind of lived up to it?
No, again, that's such a good tip, I think, when you're looking for a job is you should vet the company, because you're, you know, giving yourself as a resource, and you're going to be there for, you know, 8 hours of your day. So you want to make sure there's a fit. So yeah, and that's a really important thing. And I think culture has been a huge thing for me in my career, trying to find a good culture since I left fashion. And I've always wanted to make sure the company that I'm at is aligned to my values. So I just spent a lot of time kind of combing through, looking at Empower's website, looking at all the social media, because I think you can get such a flavor for what a business is all about. And I suppose I really liked that it was, I could tell it was really kind of small, close-knit team. And coming from a bigger organization where there's probably a lot more bureaucracy, and it's quite easy to kind of, plod along if that's what you want in your career. I really wanted to go to somewhere where I could bring value from the get-go, and I wasn't just going to be a cog in the wheel type, a cog in the machine type thing. And I that came across really clear, that you had this vision for what you wanted Empower to be, and you strategically kind of picked people who can work with you to make that vision come to life. And I think that was really exciting for me. And yeah, since joining, it's lived up to that. It's, there's so much kind of authenticity and integrity in what you do, and it translates on your socials, on the website, everything. So being able to now,
in the WhatsApp chat,
in the WhatsApp chat, yeah. So being able to kind of see that and be like, yeah, I wasn't sold a story on my interview is brilliant.
I feel like maybe like companies should have to disclose team WhatsApp chats before people join the team.
Yeah.
I think it's
you want to know what
really
you're getting
into.
Yeah.
What I love with our WhatsApp chat is anytime anyone in the team gets some good news, it just gets shared, and then everybody's like, like nice feedback after a course or something coming through on Instagram, or sort of winning a new client or something like that.
Yeah.
Everyone's popping it on there,
definitely,
and like coming in with gifts, we
I know it moves so quick as well. I'm so slow sometimes on the WhatsApp chat, but I always catch up on the messages. It's great because everyone really cares about what they do. And that comes through when we have all, the biggest to the smallest wins. We're all kind of in it together as a team to kind of, lift each other up. And I think that's really great.
Yeah. I'm sure I've shared this with you. I think I have, but I'll share it a bit more here. I get asked about imposter syndrome, of course, in training anyway. So you talk about imposter syndrome a lot. And then people say to me, like, do you ever get it? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, absolutely.
Human.
But one of the main places I get it is when people come and work for us, right? Because when I say for us, it still is for me, right? Mm-hmm. So of course there's like imposter syndrome in there, because you're like, do you really want to work for me, right? And where we've recruited people, most of the people we've recruited so far have either I've known for a long time through that, like Emma, we've known for a long time through the market. Emma was like, she calls herself like a original fan girl, right? She was just like on all our lives, on all our chats, like for years before that job came up. And then she could come in, which was brilliant. But so when she joined, I kind of knew that she knew who we were, I knew what we had to offer, and I also knew that she knew what we didn't.
Yeah.
Right. So you're like, this is great. She can kind of balance this all. And then with other people that have come in, most of them have come in and I've known them and we've kind of talked about it for a while, and they've either been leaving a role anyway. Mm-hmm. So they almost didn't have anything to lose for coming in, right? Which for me was a big deal, because I'm like, I don't want you to come in, look around and be like, oh, this is awful. And then 3 weeks later be like, oh, I made a mistake, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody was kind of almost had nothing to lose anyway, you're like, cool, because you have no mistake, right?
Yeah.
It's just a step. So that's kind of often been the case with others, or at least this is literally her first job, straight out of school. So there's kind of been that kind of sort of state with everybody until you. So you were the first person who's like, I've researched you, don't know much about you, don't know much about insurance, and I'm just gonna leave my job and come work for you. And I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure that's what you want to do? And honestly, I remember getting off the phone and being like, I was like, Joe, did you really want to work for us? The weirdest, that's one of the times that I massively get imposter syndrome. And I don't see that, to be honest, I don't see that changing for quite some time, because it just feels like, I think this is really cool. What we're doing.
Yeah.
But of course I do, because it's my thing. I think it's cool. But then, and I go in and I kind of see the corporates, and I see, I know what it's like working in nice buildings, and always kind of sort of perks that you get where someone's, joke about we have to fix our own printers, but we also have to order our own printers. Where we got our laptops from, we order them on Currys. We don't have a setup. Procurement team. So we just kind of organize all that stuff. So for me, it's just feels like when people are willing to come in from that, it's like, are you sure? Like, even though I know why, I get it. And we've got lots of people, like, we're in a really nice position where there's people who've kind of, I've got a list of people who are like, I'd love to come work for you one day. I'm like, cool, like, you're on the list, and as soon as that opportunity comes up, like, I'll let you know, because we do expect to have a few more people join over the next year or two. And then we'll probably stop. Don't have expectations to ever have a procurement team. We will always be doing our laptops on curries, but yeah, no, it's like, it's quite exciting. So when you came in, and I'm like, you okay? Do you like it?
Yeah.
Like it's like I was just looking for the like confirmation.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's cool.
No, we'll take this as confirmation.
Cool. Imposter syndrome settled. Yeah, but no, it's
and there's so much to be gained from working in a smaller team or a smaller business. So I know often when you're job hunting, and this is insurance, all industries, you want to run towards the big shiny names, which is great, and all those companies have a lot to add as well. But they're not to say that, maybe your first job is at a smaller firm or in a newer business, that there aren't huge benefits from that as well, in terms of, like I mentioned, really being able to add value and hit the ground running. And the learning curve I've been on the last 3 months has been incredible. And I think I wouldn't have gotten that if I'd stayed in my old role. It just would not have happened for me. So for me, I didn't see it as a risk. I thought the risk for me was staying where I was. Yeah, for sure.
It's like you said, the cog in the machine, and we're literally still building the machine.
Yeah,
like, we haven't got cogs yet.
And I'm roll up the sleeves. Let's let's get building.
Yeah, we literally spent this morning building a chair.
The perfect metaphor.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So how about kind of where you look at the market and you see what's gone on so far, and we've had, it's quite a nice time that you've come in, because January tends to be the time that companies are thinking ahead for the year. So we've had some really good conversations with clients about their plans for the year, and also things that they've planned to do the year before that either haven't happened or haven't gone to plan. Well, what do you think the opportunities are for training and development, really, as organisations, but also as individuals? Like, where do you think we can make a difference for people?
I think for sure, and this is something that you're smashing every day anyway, is that sort of early careers piece. Be that through engaging people through TikTok, or when we go into our clients and we're working with apprentices or grads. We talk a lot about the unwritten rules of work, and a lot of the time people just have to muddle through the start of their careers, just trying to figure it out, a bit of trial and error. So to be able to offer people those rules and say, hey, listen, this is how you can really shine at work. This is how you can find, more fulfillment in what you're doing. This is how you can, be better at this, is incredible. And I think, with so much young talent coming into insurance, that is definitely such a great opportunity to be able to shape the future of the industry, through these core kind of professional skills that we all need to succeed. But, being able to help build out the DE&I offering of Empower is something I'm so excited to be able to do. Because again, it's a real honor and a privilege to be able to help shape people at the start of their careers, and to be able to get people talking about inclusivity and diversity from, the bottom to the top. I think that's really exciting. What's the earlier part of the question? Gone off on
just
a tangent
the kind
there.
of no, you did. That's the other, like, what are the opportunities? So where can people kind of sort of see and make a difference? I think Springboard was
perfect
quite
example.
eye-opening for all of us, like, in a sense of, like, for me, we launched it. We had put it on LinkedIn for 10 days. We had 250 people sign up. And for listeners who might have missed it, Springboard is our networking group for young professionals who are in their first job. And we're calling it Springboard because we are hoping to springboard them to other networking groups. This is not, the intention is not like this is another networking group to add to the young professionals collection, but really this is the networking group to point people in the direction of the YMC, any of the under 35s, and different groups that are available for them. Because we speak to so many graduates and apprentices, and we have that reach on social media, like a kind of, they literally were asking us, like, can you do something? So like, oh, well, yeah, okay. we'll have to, because can see the gap. So we put that on, and the uptake, say 250 people signed up. I think we had 150, just under, maybe, come on the day. which I was amazed by,
Mm.
knowing the market and knowing, probably like a third of the people in the room. So, not being hugely surprised by the energy in the room. But for you, only like 6 weeks in, what was that like?
That I could not believe it. Like, it was just because I think a lot of people feel very nervous and awkward around networking, and networking events can feel very forced. But there was just a real kind of organic energy of people kind of coming together, sharing their experiences. And there was like kind of the nervousness that was there but then I could see that sort of melt away as the event wore on, and there was just a real hunger in the room to know more, to be better. People are looking for mentors, and just really keen for what's next and what else can I get involved in. I think that was really cool to see so much like proactivity and people just taking charge of their careers. I think was really exciting to see that.
Yeah. And we had we had groups that turned up, so
Yeah.
there's like cohorts that came together.
Yeah.
And left together actually. So that was nice to kind of see that they'd only been working a couple of months together and they'd already kind of got that close feel. But there were a huge amount of people that turned up on their own. I can remember the very first person that turned up, they kind of came in and they looked at me with this like dreaded look in their face, like, am I the first? I was like, yes, but that's good because there'll be somebody here in about 90 seconds and you are going to make friends in the next 5 minutes, and you then got your person
for the night.
In. And yeah, that's exactly. So initially, I think there were probably about 6 people that came just a little bit early or like bang on time.
Yeah.
That kind of had gelled, and then the next group of people were like gelling over there, and then we had a job of like half an hour in being like, move around now. Like,
yeah. But that didn't last very long actually, because I remember thinking, let me just walk around, make sure there's no one who is a bit kind of lost. And everyone was just deep in conversation. There was lots of exchanges being happened. We had the blank business cards to kind of share socials or whatever. And I saw a lot of that happening. I was like, oh, I don't really need to do anything here. We've lit the match and we've created this space, and everyone, just go do your thing. And that was great. Yeah.
No, it was so good. Someone actually asked me the other day, she said, was it when you ran it, was it facilitated? And I was like, no. But then I was like, actually, it probably was, but I just don't. Well, not consciously.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they came in, there was name badges. They were guided in. Someone showed them in. We made sure no one was standing on their own. We made sure people sort of shuffled around. Kind of gave people a couple of tips and pointers, and gave them the opportunity. So the business cards, we because in your first job, you very rarely get business cards. Yeah. Especially since COVID. But young people often really want business cards. Like, it is kind of one of those like, here they are, here's my business cards. So we got printed some cards that were essentially blank. They had blank space on them that said, no business cards, no problem. Like, pop your email addresses here, so people could exchange LinkedIn details or email addresses without kind of feeling like they were missing out because they didn't have cards. And then we gave them all a little card holder to put them in to collect their business cards and kind of encourage that going forward. So yeah, I think really it probably was it was facilitated, but it didn't feel like it, because there was no. They kept saying like, oh, is there, what's going to happen? What's the schedule? And I'm like, oh, I don't really know.
Yeah,
just getting you all in a room,
and then just
see what's needed. So yeah, it was other than saying a few words, which was basically just so that people knows what's going to happen afterwards, because these are going to be regular events now.
Yeah,
they don't really need any facilitation. So it's very exciting, and we've got the schedule for the year, at least for the first half of the year, quite penciled in. And honestly, we've got so much support from the market, from people being like, yeah, you can use our offices to host these. Yeah, we'll cover the cost of the refreshments, or you can run a mentoring session at ours. And equally, if anyone's listening to this and thinking, oh, we want to help, absolutely, please do.
Get in touch.
We are inundated with young people asking for this, and I think our only limit really is resources. So if we can host, a networking event like that 6 times a year, we will.
Yeah,
it's not a huge amount of work for us. We've got the mailing list, we've got the people that want to go to it. So the reality there, it started out because I just occasionally put on drinks, networking events for people from Fast Start initially. So our technical training program, we kind of put some drinks on so they'd have a chance to meet each other there. And then during the intern season, so around August, I was training interns, and I was really aware going into one company and they had 50 interns, and going into another company and they had 3. And you just think the experience everyone's getting is quite different, but they're all going to go away thinking about the company they worked for, but not understanding necessarily the industry they work for. So I want them to kind of come together and realize that there's, you know, a whole like huge amount of companies and career options and so on here. So by the time they go back to university, they're thinking, I want to work in insurance, and they'll probably have an affiliation to the company they work for, but they're not like, they understand how the market works outside of that.
Yeah.
So put on an event for that, and we had 60 people turn up, which was brilliant.
Yeah.
But also I hadn't, you know, I just put my car behind the bar. Because you're on an internship, right? Like I don't want there to be a barrier of I did just say like we'll buy the first drink, but you know, the reality is once people were there, I didn't want to be like, right, over to you now. So we did that. And people just kept coming up to me going, this is brilliant, we need more of it, I'm like, we do, you're right, I can't put my car behind a bar once I'm done. Like so then I thought we've got to come up with a better way of doing this. There's a group of young professionals in the market who are so proactive, so enthusiastic, so supportive. So kind of got around a table with them and brainstormed some ideas, and they're really keen to help this over the year as well. So we kind of got off to a bit of a fast kind of launch with it, but we're trying to sort of slow down the thinking and schedule everything for the year. So we've got it all mapped out and a bit of a pipeline as to how it's going to happen. So if anyone wants to come along to that, then you can just drop us an email. We'll add you to the mailing list on it. And it's literally open to anyone. We just request like you are right in the early stage of your career, because you know there's a different feel coming in your first job. Like under 35s, like for a 19-year-old walking into an under 35s, like, that's still, you know, it might feel like young professionals, but
there's a gulf between, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 35. 19-year-olds don't think of me as their age. I think of myself as their age, but they don't think of me as their age. So this is kind of really for people in their first kind of couple of years, who haven't got all that experience networking yet, who just really want to do it in a really kind of safe, secure environment, knowing that you're going to have people at a similar stage to you, not asking you super technical questions about insurance or the other things that people worry about. And then the more events the better. So anyone that wants to help and support it, just let me know, because I think the demand is absolutely there. Okay, so what about what you think we can be doing as Empower Development? So you've come along to our strategy days. How did you find that?
Really interesting. I think we have a real mix of personalities. So there's lots of ideas being flown around, which is really cool. I think I'm an introverted thinker. So when it comes to things like that, I probably am quite quiet and I kind of reflect and I think, and I probably go away and think, and then I'm more likely to share ideas. So I think that's quite an interesting dynamic for me, having that sort of big team brainstorm. But I think it's exciting because there's a real kind of feeling of let's just try it. There's no limits. And again, kind of coming from a bigger, slightly more corporate environment, I heard a lot of that, you know, that for whatever reason we can't do that, budget, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's been really exciting to know that there's anything's possible, really. Everything's on the table and up for discussion. So that's probably my main takeaway from our strategy days. So
the strategy days. I must say that's another imposter syndrome thing. The first time I set them up, I'm like, strategy days, like strategy, but it very much is strategy. But they do feel like that more now because there's a lot more heads like around the table. So what we do is for those of you who kind of don't know how we operate, we have an office in my back garden. And there's 4 desks in that one, and then there's one more desk inside. But sometimes, because it's in the garden, sometimes we just hang out in the kitchen because we're feeling like we fancy a cozy day or whatever. So kind of a lot of the work goes on in the house. And I was actually saying on TikTok this morning, what's actually kind of funny is I spend less time here than most of the young people. So there's quite often people working here and I'm in London. So there's always someone working in the office at the back of the house. But the reality is we are a remote business outside of that. So Emma's obviously in Manchester. We've got Claire in North London, Hertfordshire. Andrew's in Cambridge, and our new yet to be announced person not too far away from Emma. So it's just not practical for us to, have an anchor day one day a week or anything like that for everybody. And we can kind of go off in our different directions with ideas that we've got, things we're running to. So sometimes I look at the strategy days more as kind of like we all go in different directions. And then that's the day that we're like, all come back together, pull back in, and then go off again, pull back in. Because we're kind of, because we are a small business, you can work at a real quite quick pace, right? Like you can just make a decision on a WhatsApp group. Like you don't need to have a committee meeting and things like that. So we can do things quite quickly.
Yeah.
But equally, then we can get distracted by things quite quickly.
Yeah.
So sometimes we need to just have it and be like, right, what was on the list? What did we say we were doing last time? Right, we haven't done that one, have we? Because we're busy doing this one. So I think they're kind of almost like for ideas, but also just to kind of keep us on track, especially me, because otherwise the year just flies by. So yeah, it's quite nice. Have those sort of, you've had 2 of those, and the first, you've had 3 actually, really, haven't you? Because you've had one where one of our clients kindly lended their office. I won't say who they are. They asked me not to massively broadcast it. Another client. We've got really nice clients.
We do. We're very lucky.
And we did the SDI day that day.
That was really cool. I'm looking forward to getting my accreditation for SDI.
Yeah, so SDI is the Strength Deployment Inventory, which anyone that used to work with me at Liberty will know well. Because, we rolled that out to lots and lots of people while I was there, and I love it. I've done it with friends and family even, because it's psychometric. But what I like about this one is it's just so easy to remember. Just the colour kind of coding, and the way that it doesn't just put you, say, like you are put you in a box. You can sort of see the difference between how far into a section, how much of a preference you've got for certain things. But the thing I especially love about it is the conflict management piece.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That really blew my mind when we went through that as a team, to understand how everyone moves through conflict in very different ways. I think, that was a real light bulb moment learning that.
Like I think with teams when they're getting along, team building training's like, nice. It's a nice thing to do on strategy day.
It's fun, isn't it? It's a day out, but I think
it's the conflict.
Because no one really wants to talk about conflict in the workplace, because we don't want that, but it happens. So being able to know how to manage it within ourselves, I think is a really powerful, bit of information.
Yeah, and I think we often, when you say the word conflict, as you're listening to this, you're probably picking out what you think that looks like. So you might look at like, these 2 people arguing over a table. You might look at it like them 2 won't talk to each other, so we can't just put them in the same room. Or like sort of really sort of negative office politics. And all of those things can be, but it can even just be as simple as like somebody's made a mistake and they don't know how they want to talk about it. Or somebody's upset about something that's happened and is trying not to make a fuss, but actually you can see that they're not okay while they're trying not to make a fuss. And allowing that, understanding that people deal with conflict in different ways to you makes, I think, you more aware that somebody else might be in conflict where you hadn't spotted it, but also means that you're not making assumptions over, how bad something is for them. You're understanding them as an individual. And I tell you what, in my personal life, that's been so helpful. Not just like in the here and now of understanding, and it doesn't mean I don't go through conflict, and it doesn't mean going through conflict is easy, but it does give me almost like a whole level of ways to like coach myself as I go through something. So I've kind of been going through something, which I won't share on here, but I have shared with the team. So you probably know, like in my personal kind of life, it's not terrible. Like this, in my head, when you like, I'm a processor in conflict. So I've been processing it for months, and I've been talking about it, trying to work out what my options are, what I do, and reflecting on it and so on. So like you say, you're reflective normally, I'm reflective in conflict. And if I didn't do this tool, I'd just be like, why am I not just getting on with it? And the reality is I'm not getting on with it, because that's not my style. That's okay. Like, don't rush myself, give myself a deadline, or I will drag this on for years. But, like, allow myself to kind of deal with it that way. Whereas My partner is the complete opposite. Honestly, if he's got a problem, you know about it, and then 5 minutes later he's not got a problem because he's aired it. And I'm like, well, I've got a problem now. I'm going to process it for a week, and then I'm going to tell you about my problem in a week, and you won't even remember that 5-minute conversation. But also looking back, so I kind of key times in my life where you've gone through like conflict with people that really matter to you, then that's like kind of when you go through. Oh, sorry, I'll share. So I'm divorced, and no, I'm in a relationship now with Mark, and we've got kids together. So just to kind of confuse people, that's not a recent thing, even though I'm young. This gets quite this is where people's stereotyping of trying to piece together bits of the journey needs a bit of a timeline with it. But I got married at 22.
Oh, wow, right? That's young,
yeah. Really young. And I was absolutely sure I was doing the right thing, of course. And we were together for 4 years after we were married. So it was obviously the time before and then that. So, I don't think we didn't rush into it. It's not like it was a year later or whatever. But I think the reality is we were still developing as people. And, I have changed a considerable amount from before I was married to now. Probably unrecognizable in a lot of ways, especially because of my work and my career. Like that's a whole part of my life I never thought I'd have. I never thought I'd work for myself. I never thought I'd be what other people might describe me as a workaholic. I don't describe myself like that because I feel like work. Other people certainly would, and so on. And at the time that we broke up, I was not probably there, but I was probably heading in that direction. I say probably because I still don't know why we broke up. It was just announced to me one day that we were no longer going to be together. With in a 15-minute conversation, and then he was off without any reason. But so then I was 26 and I was getting divorced. And what I did when he told me this, right, it just so weird to look back on myself and sort of think about it. So he told me this, and I'm like, okay. He left the house. Well, actually, he said, "What do I do?" And I was like, "I think you leave. Like I don't think that you just sit here and finish your cup of tea. Like you've told me you don't want to be married anymore. Like maybe go. Like, and there's no conversation to have because you made up your mind. Like what's leave? Maybe give me some space." So he left, and then I think I had a cry. Like I say this quite unsure because I didn't cry a lot. I think I had a cry. And then I went for a walk. And I went for a walk for 3.5 hours, I think it was.
Wow.
And on this walk, I worked out every way this was going to impact my life. I was like, okay, so I now need to think about paying the mortgage. How am I going to pay the mortgage? Can I pay the mortgage without him? Am I going to need to buy him out the house? What am I going to do with that? I didn't drive at the time. Did I drive? Not have a car? No, I didn't drive at the time. So I was like, I'm going to have to learn to drive because now I've got a car. So and it's
a lot to process. And
honestly, processing it all. Had 2 CRI exams the week after.
Oh my goodness!
Right. So I'm like, or did I have one? I think I had one. I had my last one, TACAFL. I was like, I've got my exam, so I've got to make sure I do what I've done. I'm like 5 days away from my exam. I'm not failing this exam just because of this. I've got to get that done. So I want to make sure I go sit that. So I've got to think about work. I obviously wouldn't be going in Monday anyway because it's a study day and I've got my exam on Tuesday. Would I be going to work on Wednesday? I need to think about that. Like just spent 3.5 hours playing a game of chess with my life, right? Get home, I text my friends and I'm like, okay, it's quite funny when I look back on it now. But the amount of people I text and said Lawrence has left, and they text me going back like, "Where's he gone?" When I say it was out of the blue, even his sister. Like I text his sister, I was like, "Lawrence has left me," and they're like, "Where's he gone?"
No, he's gone.
Like people had no, like it was so weird and out of the blue. So friends came round, or one of my friends came round with a box of wine.
Yeah, well, necessary.
She got the memo, and then sort of talked it all through and worked out some kind of plans. And I was like, it's weird how my head worked. I was like, right, okay, so it's November now. And I'm probably going to get emotional about this in 3 or 4 weeks once it hits me, because it's clearly not. I knew it hadn't hit me yet, right? I knew that what I was doing wasn't.
It was shock.
Yeah. So I could see that. So I was like, it's probably going to hit me in 3 or 4 weeks. At which point, I'm probably going to need a handful of weeks to like mope, and then I'm going to need something to look forward to. So I'm going to book a holiday for late January. Wow. Right, and I booked it with her, and one of our other friends, and it was like so process driven. The whole thing was like step by step. How am I getting through this?
Did you know you were like that beforehand, or was this a whole new side of you that just emerged?
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, I knew I was a planner in that sense, and what like. To be fair, I probably did, but I just didn't know that in that extreme a circumstance, my response would be to go more extreme into that style.
Right.
Whereas, like, the worse it was, the more of it I was doing, because that's my coping mechanism. So I'm like, this is really bad. So I'm going to do loads and loads of my coping mechanism rather than like try something else, which is probably what I thought might happen. And I barely cried. Like, I mean, I did, but compared to
what you would have thought, yeah.
Gosh, I'm sharing all this on. Why not?
All love's praise.
But yeah, I mean, it's all conflict. So then I went into work on the Wednesday, and I can remember my colleague, he was brilliant. But I came in and I'd done my exam, right? I did my exam. So I did all my revision, and it was massive distraction for me. Really, really healthy, actually, I think, in that sense.
Okay.
Have that distraction.
Something to focus your mind on.
Have that target. Till Tuesday, sit the exam on Tuesday, came out of the exam, and then I rang his mum, and that's the first time I'd spoken to his mum.
Right.
It was almost like right, that's done now. Now I'll deal with that. And I spoke to her, and we both had a bit of a cry on the phone. And then came to work on the Wednesday, and I came in and I sat down there, hi, how are you? How was the exam? I was like, yeah, good. And I paused for what felt like 5 minutes, but it was probably about 5 seconds, and just went, so Lawrence has left. And has he gone? And I was like, no, he's left me. And then the guy got up and closed the door and was like, what? Like, what's going on? Why are you here? What is this? And I was like, told him again, like I'm talking about it now. Right? Like a third person.
Yeah.
So I'm detached from it now, which years ago. But even at that time, I detached myself from it to process it.
Cope, yeah.
And then I went for lunch with one of my best friends that I'd met there. So, still friends now. But we went for lunch with her. And she knew us both. We were actually both godparents to her child. So she knew us both very well. And she was like, what? And got back to the office. And then he sat me down and he said, you do realise this is happening to you, like this is happening. And that's exactly what I needed to hear, because it was almost like I kind of was. It
was someone else's life you're talking about.
And I was like, okay. And then I cried, and then he was like, go home, no rush, and it was Wednesday. So I think I took the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off, and then I was back in Monday. And this is where the story actually is something I like always work out. How do I articulate this? Because I think this is a real challenge for me still, but certainly more at that time, and other women no doubt go through this. But so I was getting divorced. I was 26. Now, I don't want to tell people like over and over again I'm divorced. Like I just kind of put it out there to enough people. It will get spread around, gossip, like the industry's word. It will go round. I don't need to tell anyone.
Yeah.
And it didn't enough, because actually I think quite often when it's personal news, people don't gossip about
that is true.
So I did find myself being like, oh, I don't know what I told you, and people were like, no, why did you not tell me? I was like, I just kind of thought so. I hope it's not.
You hoped it would, it's fine. Do its work.
Yeah. But the issue was my married name is Samantha Ridgewell.
Ah, okay.
I was 26.
Yeah.
I didn't want to change my name back to my maiden name.
Right.
Or at least I wasn't ready to. Purely because, well, I mean, initially it was like, this has all happened very quickly. I don't know what's going to happen in the next few months. But then at the point where I'm like, okay, clearly nothing, like we're not going to get back together. Then it was, if I change my name back, I am going to have this conversation with people and they're going to go, congratulations.
Oh, of course, because they'll then
26.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Everyone
yeah.
assumes you're changing your name because you're getting married or because you're getting divorced.
Yeah.
And I thought, I just don't want to have like every interaction be like, oh no, I'm really sorry. Okay.
No,
And then like explain myself
that's
every
true. I
time.
never thought about that before.
Like,
yeah.
And this is where I probably overthinking my kind of like conversations with people and making sure people do. I didn't want people to feel awkward. Like I didn't want people to be like, oh, I said the wrong thing, and be like, I really don't mind, but I didn't want to have to say that over and over again. So I didn't change it.
Yeah.
Now, if you imagine the size of my network at 26, right? It was a reasonably sized network, but it was very internal. The more time went on, the harder this has got, right? If I at any point change my name now, like, it's like, well, where's Samantha Ridgewell?
Yeah.
Right? Who's that? Who's like, true. Who is that? Right?
Yeah.
So I then kind of had to debate whether or not to change that. And now this decision I've got, the one I've come to is like, Mark and I are engaged. We will get married. We just keep putting it down the list. But we will do it, and we'll probably do it next year. And then I'll change my name.
Yeah.
And one of the main reasons I want to get married is because I want to change my name, especially to have the same name as girls.
Yeah.
But then once I change that name, that will be my business name. But I can't change my business name twice, right? So if my maiden name is Cockcroft,
right,
I would have to change now back to Cockcroft, which, you know, is like confusing to change it anyway. And then I'll be like, oh, and then a year or two later, I'm changing it again.
Yeah.
Leiden, like, I don't want to keep changing my name.
Right.
So I'm saving it to do it once. But I do think like this is like, it's a massive issue and it shouldn't be. And people hopefully will listen to this and say it isn't. And I'm like, I like that.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's not. But the reality is a lot of my brand and the business is associated to my name.
Yeah.
And over time, like Empower Development's name is bigger than mine. People are asking me now, like, "Oh, how long have you worked here?" And I'm like, "Oh, cool, like this."
That's brilliant.
But you'll notice on my email, or on all of our emails, only has our first name.
Yeah, I like that actually. I do like that a lot.
The reason for that is because I didn't want to put Samantha Ridgewell, knowing that at some point I was going to change it. Right?
Yeah, of course.
So I thought it's much easier than changing it. So just going by first name. But yeah, it's such a topic, and I kind of want to work out how to address it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I guess, as if women get married and they do decide to change their names, then, you know, how does that affect their careers? And I've never really thought about that before because, like you said, people know you as Samantha Ridgewell. And you almost have like built up some sort of brand equity in that. So then to change it, I understand that, you know, that the dilemma that it's like, well, who are you now? And it's I guess it's a uniquely kind of female experience in that sense because of the sort of traditions of changing your name. My sister got married last year and she kind of ummed and ahed about changing her name. She always wanted to keep her maiden name. So she's gone down the double-barreled route.
Yeah.
So it is
but
definitely
I couldn't do that with Cockcroft Ridgewell.
Yeah.
I mean, like
that is a mouthful.
Samantha Cockcroft Ridgewell. Like, no.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. So
yeah. No, and I know a lot of people who don't change their name.
Yeah.
But then that becomes a nightmare as well because honestly, if I check into a hotel, they're like, "What's your name?" And I'm like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
Samantha Cockcroft, Samantha Ridgewell, How Development.
Yeah.
Like, and then it's comes with all kinds of temporary challenges. It will be fixed next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna have to do like some campaign while I change my name.
Yeah, exactly. The big reveal.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that was off topic. But yeah, so for me, that kind of conflict system helped me understand why I was behaving in a way that other people would think was very odd.
Yeah.
I just knew that's like
that was
what
your
I was
process.
going through, and looking back on times like that, and other times I'm like, okay, like I understand, because otherwise I think people sort of say you're weird, right? And they do, like your friends will tell you when you're behaving weird.
Yeah.
So I did have friends being like, why are you not crying? Like, this is weird. Why aren't you crying to me? And I'm like, I don't feel like I need to.
Yeah.
But for them, they would.
Yeah.
So they expect me to do what they would do. And if I'm not doing what they would do, it's weird.
It feels jarring.
Yeah. So having that kind of tool allows me to be like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know why I'm doing it. And it doesn't have to be the same as what everybody's doing. The same as what everybody's doing, but I understand what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, very helpful tool. Very off topic.
Yeah.
In a podcast, we're meant to be talking about you.
A very, very important discussion. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So what have you learned from yourself from doing that exercise?
I think it kind of cemented Well, actually, I probably wasn't aware that I did this, but in conflict, I think I'm trying to remember if I speak first, then reflect, and then kind of come to a resolution. I think I'm sort of more in day-to-day life, I'm probably more of a reflector. But I think when it comes to conflict, maybe I do find it a bit easier to kind of say what I'm thinking at the time and then go away to reflect. Which isn't always the best when it comes to result, particularly if you're dealing with someone who's also like that, you know, heads can butt. But it was good to have that understanding about my process. And actually sometimes the reason I can hold on to things or conflicts or misunderstandings for longer than I need to is because I haven't spoken up in that moment. And I realize how important that is for me to feel like I have voice when it comes to decision making or conflicts. You know, the need to feel heard actually is really, really important for me. So I've kind of made sure I honor that in, you know, my day-to-day relationships and things like that, because then I know I can be my authentic self because I've kind of allowed myself to go through that process. So
you just said like, which isn't the best. Which again is like you put your, so I'm saying like I was reflecting and that's not the best.
Yeah,
that's
right?
it. There isn't a best.
There isn't a best. That is a very good point.
Yeah, conflict's always going to be hard.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to enjoy it.
No.
There's always going to be like a better way. With hindsight, we could have addressed everything. But I think the skill is knowing when things work for you and when they don't.
Yeah, that's true.
And trying to manage it when you can. I think the reality is in conflict, it's hard to manage.
It is.
There's a lot more at stake for you. Your mind's on overdrive.
Yeah.
Whereas day to day, you can adapt your communication, I think, a little bit more consciously.
Yeah, exactly.
Conflict, like emotions are at play. Like,
yeah,
there's a lot going
that's
on.
It. And we are inherently rational beings.
Yeah,
so.
and our chimp is going on.
Our chimp, yeah.
Back to earlier. Yeah.
Exactly.
Excellent. Okay, so do you want to tell people what you're up to over the next couple of months? What's it looking like for you?
Yeah, now I've got a very busy February coming up. So I'll be running a series of Women with Presence for a client. So I'm really excited to do that. That's going to be kind of spread out over about a 3-week period. Normally it's like a 2-day session, you'd say, but we've adapted this to make it sort of into 3 smaller sessions. So that's going to be really interesting to dive into that and connect with loads of women over those 3 weeks and really get to know them. I'm also, as I mentioned, working on the DE&I sort of offering. So we've just designed an unconscious bias and belonging workshops. That'll be really exciting to hopefully deliver that over the next in February at some point. So really excited for that, and for that to kind of be hopefully opening some more doors for that kind of content and really being able to build that out, because we do so much in this space anyway. So it just makes sense that, you know, people can start to come to Empower for that kind of training and material as well. What else is going on? So many things. I'm just getting my head around a lot of the material. So from an insurance, slightly more technical side of things as well, which is great for me.
You're going to the box?
I am. Yes, that popped into my head earlier. Yes, I am going to the box in February. So I'm very excited about that. Absolutely, just my mind is blown by the Lloyd's building. It's one of the most fascinating places I've ever stepped foot into. So I've been very lucky that a former colleague of Sam's has allowed me to kind of sit in with her at the box for a couple of hours one day, so I can kind of observe the processes and kind of the underwriter broker kind of relationships. I'm really excited to see that. So that's definitely going to be a highlight for the coming month.
Good. And then it'll be summer. Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Sitting in the summer, it just feels like it feels like a long winter right now.
It does, yeah. That's keeping us going.
So we always end the podcast with a tip. So a top tip from you to listeners on something that will support them with their career progression.
A tip that I've always found really helpful, and just something to have in the back of your mind, is that your career doesn't have to be a linear journey. And it can be a squiggly line sometimes. I think not being afraid of that is really important. So if you feel like something isn't working, or somewhere isn't working, or you don't feel like you are valued, or if it's no longer serving you, don't be afraid to move. I think the idea of a job for life is archaic now, and I think if you feel like you're in an environment that doesn't support you or is not a good fit for your values, don't be afraid to look elsewhere, because there will be somewhere where you are celebrated. So that's probably my top tip.
I love that. There's some nice examples, I think, from people we've interviewed that have done that. Helen Gemmell's the one that comes to my mind. Go back and have a listen to that one. She's just
I will do.
Carved out a career path that is so fitting for her, but nobody would ever have drawn out.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Don't feel like you have to stick to conventions because it's a well-trodden path. Sometimes you can go off piste a little bit.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, well, thank you. And this is, I think we've got some plans for podcasts for us and use of kind of YouTube and so on. So this is our introduction conversation, but there will be more conversations on certain topics. So if anyone's listening to this and curious to just, give us topics to chat through, whether it's like networking, building trust, conflict. So we've talked very much about, heard a lot about my experience.
That resonates. Today. Yeah, it'd be great to hear more.
But if people want to kind of, more theory behind that,
really
dissect that, so on, then let us know, and we'll pick out some of those topics to go through in future podcasts.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. All right. Well, have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.